Hey, this is C&D Channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my prediction for UFC 191 Johnson versus Dodson 2, which happens on September 5th. But before I get into that, I would like to plug my friend who's a graphic designer. His name's Nathan Wolf, and then I'd like to plug his website at www.wolfhaas.design, and he can help you with all of your graphic design needs. Okay, as far as the card goes, I like this card. I'm actually looking forward to pretty much almost all the fights are interesting in some way. The Fight Pass Premium ones, I'm not too big on, but every other fight is pretty good. Tiago Trator dos Santos fights Clay Collard. They're both prospects, not blue chippers. Not a bad fight. Always nice to see a women's fight. Carmouche versus Pennington. They're actually around the same level. Lineker versus Rivera is just going to be a fun fight. I am greatly looking forward to that. I think Felder versus Pearson should be really good too. Main card, all good here, You have Paige, VanZant, Anthony Rumble Johnson, Arlovski versus Mir, Johnson versus Dodson. Anderson versus Blachowicz. It could be a good fight. It's tough to say. Not a terrible fight or anything like that. It's just really tough to say how that fight's going to go. So let's get started. Okay, in the main event, we have Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson fighting John Dodson for a second time. And this is for the UFC flyweight title. Johnson, 22-2 record with 1 draw, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 9 wins by sub. 29 years old on an 8-fight win streak. Trains out of AMC Pancration. He is the current and only UFC flyweight champion that they've had so far. This guy is, in my opinion, probably the most well-rounded fighter out there. I mean, he really has no weakness. His stand-up's really good. He uses combinations well. He's defensively sound. He's strong in the clinch. You can watch the Ali Buggy Tuna fight, and his clinch striking has really improved. His wrestling is some of the best in the division. He has picture perfect takedowns. His timing, speed, and everything. They're really nice to watch. He's a good scrambler. His takedown defense is good. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really good too. This guy's actually has a pretty good armbar. Armbar Kyoji Horiguchi, 4 minutes and 59 seconds in the 5th round. Armbar John Moraga. His cardio is really good too. He goes 5 rounds, and the way he looks in round 5 is the same as he'll look in round 1. And he's just really quick. There really isn't anything about Johnson not to like. Maybe you can kind of say point fighter, but even if you go there, he's actually a relatively potent finisher. Knocking out Benavidez, submitting Moraga and Horiguchi. Those are all guys that are really tough to finish, So, he fights John Dodson, who has a 17-6 record, 8 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. 30 years old on a 3-fight win streak, training out of Jackson Winklejohn. He's an Ultimate Fighter winner who's got some strong boxing, real heavy-handed. He has a really good left hand too. That thing is money. His takedown defense is really good. Even if you can take him down, he's hard to keep down. There's some weaknesses with him. One, he's actually a very low output striker. He will strike in combination. But he's relatively low output. And his cardio is a bit questionable too. He gets even lower output as fights go on. Honest truth, I don't even think he beat Zach Makovsky. And I believe that was his last fight. He did really well against Demetrious Johnson in their first fight, though. I believe in my opinion, he won the first 2 rounds and knocked him down, 2... I know it's 2 times at least. Could have been more. I just totally forgot. This is a good matchup. However, I feel that Demetrious Johnson, since the first time they fought, got better And John Dodson has more or less just stayed the same. I remember in their fight, one thing that was really effective for Johnson, especially in the later rounds, was knees from the clinch. That really worked well against Dodson. His cardio was going away after like the third round as well. So this is an interesting matchup, just in the sense that at the very least I can see Dodson doing well in the first 2 rounds. But in the rounds after that, I gotta go with Johnson. Just he has more tools to work with. He has better cardio. He's not as heavy-handed. That's really where Dodson shines there. But Johnson, I think, has more variety in his striking as well. So I'll go with Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson for the win. Dodson's he seems like he's hard to put away. So I'll go Johnson by decision there. Next fight, that Andrei the Pitbull Arlovski fights Frank Mir. Frank Mir, 18-9 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 9 wins by sub. Also has 7 losses by KO TKO. 36 years old. He's 6'3". He is a former UFC heavyweight champion, a true veteran, and a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. His boxing has actually been greatly improving, and he's showing some power in his strikes. Most recently knocking out Todd Duffy, and before that he knocked out Antonio Bigfoot Silva. He actually has a good kicking game too, a really good body kick actually. His wrestling's not too bad, his chin though isn't the greatest. Andrei Arlovski, 24-10 record with 1 no contest, 17 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub. Also has 7 losses by KO TKO, similar to Frank Mir. Also 36 years old. This is actually a fight I've wanted to see for a long time. I kid you not. They've had very similar career trajectories. I mean, they've had this like 3 or 4 fight losing streak where they just looked bad in and losing to guys that, like Arlovski, he lost to like Felder, Bigfoot Silva, Brett Rogers, and Russian fighter whose name escapes me. He's beaten like Overeem and Verdun. Russian fighter's name who absolutely escapes me. Mir had that really bad stretch where he lost to Dos Santos, Cormier, Barnett, and Overeem. But have since just resurged. I mean, Arlovski, after that bad losing streak, was pretty much winning a lot until he ran into Anthony Rumble Johnson and did not get knocked out. And then Arlovski most recently beat Travis Brown and won the best rounds of the year. Arlovski, did I say stats? I don't think I said his stats. Oh, I did. One thing about Arlovski, training at Jackson Winkeljohn's helped him a lot. He's a former UFC heavyweight champion. His boxing is good and he's heavy-handed. But what's funny about his boxing, and you can just watch it, especially recently, is he is like the most one-handed fighter I've ever seen. I mean, the guy just throws a right hand and will piston that right hand like over and over again, you know? I hope that doesn't sound inappropriate, but you know what I mean. Like, he'll punch with the right, or lever. It's a lever punch. He'll cock back and throw a right again. Like, he just doesn't use left hands very much. His takedown defense is good. His chin, though, isn't the greatest. Going back to the right hand thing, too, with Arlovski, he actually developed a new move. So he throws his right hand, and part of it is because he's off balance, actually. He's lunging forward so much, throwing right hands. But what happens is there's so much momentum, he can actually throw a back fist, a very strong back fist, afterwards. And that worked to great effect against Travis Brown. He was throwing the right hand, would miss, but throw a subsequent back fist with the same hand, and wobbled Brown with it, and hit him with that multiple times, actually. That was really interesting. Interesting fight here. You know, I am of the opinion that both these guys can knock each other out. I know Frank Mir's not known for knocking guys out, but like I said, his boxing's improving. He's always been relatively heavy-handed. I think he's just a little more confident with his striking these days. I'd say Arlovski's a little faster, though. Mir, as much as he's made improvements in his stand-up, he's still relatively slow, whereas Arlovski a bit quicker in his striking. On the ground, Mir should have the advantage, but I have a really hard time seeing him take Arlovski down. So this is really interesting. I don't really know how the fight's going to go. I said this before, too. Not many guys actually beat Mir at range. A lot of his losses come in the clinch against the cage. I think Overeem's one of the... Well, no, not even Overeem. Overeem managed to just take him down all day. I think Junior Dos Santos is probably one of the only guys that's really beat Mir up recently. I can't speak for, like, you know, Mir from back then, but at least recently, the only guy that really managed to beat Mir at range is Junior Dos Santos. So this is going to be interesting because, like, Arlovski, you know, does fight at that kind of more rangy, straighter punches type guy. Tough to say who's going to win this. Both of them have been resurging. I'm going to go Arlovski, though. I've liked what seen from him. Even though he's mainly a one-handed fighter, you know, it's not to say he doesn't use his left hand. He just doesn't use it a lot. I think he can hit Mir with something big. I really do. Like I said, I think he's also just faster. I don't know if we're going to see the Arlovski, though, that has no confidence. Pretty much, he's a guy that gets hit clean once, backs up straight against the cage, and just starts getting overwhelmed. That is an Arlovski I haven't seen in a while. And he fought Anthony Rumble Johnson, got his jaw broken, and I didn't see that guy, so that's good. And even against Travis Brown, I think I saw a little bit. I think he did that once, actually. Not too sure now. But he is a guy that's been overcoming bad situations. He did get dropped by Brown and managed to come back. So I gotta go with Arlovski. I think both of their confidence has been at an all-time high. I think that's really helped both of them, especially a guy like Arlovski who really needs the confidence. I think training at Jackson Winklejohn's kind of helping him there. And I'm gonna go Arlovski by knockout, maybe with the right hand. You know, maybe an in-close uppercut, or heck, maybe that right-handed back fist. I don't know. Andrei or the Pitbull Arlovski for the win by KO or TKO. Next fight, that Anthony Rumble Johnson fights Jimi Manuwa. Fun fight here. Jimi Manuwa, 15-1 record, 13 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub, 35 years old. He'll be the shorter fighter at 6 foot. He's a good kickboxer, pretty heavy-handed. His grappling's actually improving. You can actually see him going for offensive takedowns and whatnot. His takedown defense isn't like that terrible either. Anthony Johnson, 19-5 record, 13 wins by KO or TKO, 6 wins by decision. He also has 4 losses by sub, 31 years old, 6'2", training out of Blachowicz. He has some really strong kickboxing, extremely heavy-handed. This guy touches you and you go down. His counter-striking ability is really good too. His wrestling, both offensively and defensively, is good. One of his biggest problems, though, there's a couple actually. He's weak off his back. His cardio is a bit questionable. And there are fights against Gustafsson, and this lost him the fight against Cormier, where he fights like there's only one round. And, like, he fights like a heavyweight in a sense that, like, he puts everything into the first and maybe second round. You saw it against Gustafsson, and it worked. He just kind of, like, he gets in his stance, he stalks his opponent, and just starts swinging wildly, you know? And sometimes, against Gustafsson, he caught him, and knocked him out, you know? Against Cormier, he knocked him down and landed some really good hits. But he fought that way, and Cormier took him. He even belly flopped at one point. But he managed to come back. Johnson's super tired. And then, uses his superior wrestling to get him to the ground, and then chokes him out. And that's the thing with Johnson. For the last, 2 fights, he's fighting like there's only 1 or 2 rounds. So that could be a problem against a guy like Manuwa, Nonetheless, I like Anthony Johnson to win this one, probably by KO or TKO. I don't think Manuwa, like I said, unless there is that early storm and Manuwa survives it for the first round and Johnson's totally gassed in round 2 and 3. I think Johnson probably, I would argue, has the better stand-up. I like his kicking game also, Johnson's, and his counter-striking game. I think Manuwa could touch Johnson. At the very least with Johnson too, he can always resort to his wrestling if things go south. So, I'll go with Anthony Johnson though by KO or TKO. Next fight, that Corey Beaston 25-8 Anderson fights Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz, 18-4 record, 5 wins by KO or TKO, 7 wins by sub, 32 years old. He's actually going to be a shorter fighter at 6'2". His stand-up's good. He hits pretty hard. His output's really low, though. That's one of his biggest problems, is that he's just such a low-output striker. His grappling actually isn't too bad. Corey Anderson, 5-1 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by decision, 25 years old. He's 6'3". He's an Ultimate Fighter winner. His boxing's actually really improving. He looked pretty good against John Vellante. However, he was not checking leg kicks and eventually got knocked out. I think he was winning up until that point, though. And his overall grappling game, like his wrestling, isn't too bad. His ground and pound isn't too bad either. This one's hard for me to call, actually. You got to give the experience advantage to Jan Blachowicz. I mean, that's obvious. You got a guy that's 18-4 versus a guy that's 5-1. Anderson, though, is the better athlete. He's younger. But you can tell he's still kind of green, For as long as he's doing against Vellante, he's also making a lot of mistakes, too. And eventually got knocked out because of it. I don't know if there's too much he can exploit from Jan Blachowicz. I'm not saying, Jimi Manuwa managed to outstrike him. I don't think Anderson has the same striking as Jimi Manuwa. So, tough one for me to call. I'm actually pretty high on Anderson. I'm very curious to know what this matchup's about, in a sense. Did the UFC put this together because, it's a good... Because this is a tough matchup. If you look at Anderson as a prospect, and he is. He's 25 years old, 6'3", legit light heavyweight, and he only has 6 fights. He is one of the better prospects at light heavyweight. He's fighting a guy with a lot more experience, who's a good, solid overall fighter. One of the biggest problem with Blachowicz really is just that he's low output. He doesn't always throw enough. He doesn't have enough activity sometimes. And then you get the guy to the ground and he's not super active all the time. So, really tough one for me to call. So I'm pretty high on Anderson. I'm not super high on Blachowicz. But, Blachowicz did have that big win over Alir Latifi. And I'm actually pretty high on Latifi as well. And, Blachowicz will be the best guy that Corey Anderson will have fought at this point. Yeah, I gotta go with the experience over prospects, over potential, pretty much. Because at this point, Anderson is an ever-improving fighter. Despite his last loss, he showed improvements in that fight. His boxing is pretty solid. But I gotta go with Blachowicz here. Just he has more experience. There's more capability of him exploiting a hole in Anderson's defense. He's good, Blachowicz isn't that bad on the ground too. So, geez, I don't know how. I'll just go safe pick Jan Blachowicz by decision. Tough for me to call. Like I said, Corey Anderson, 25 years old, 6'3", only 6 fights, constantly improving. He's a good prospect. One of the better ones at light heavyweight. Like I said, just a little too green for my taste. There's a guy like Jan Blachowicz who is just solid fighter. Doesn't have, biggest hole really is like a low output and activity. But nonetheless, I think he can exploit holes there. So, Jan Blachowicz by decision. Next fight after that, Alex Astro Girl Chambers fights 12 gauge Paige VanZant. VanZant, 5-1 record, 1 win by TKO, 1 win by sub, 21 years old, training out of Team Alpha Male. Her game really is her high pressure. She is constantly pushing forward. Strong cardio. She has a really good scrambling game. She's good in the clinch. Her clinch takedowns are good, but I'm not fond on the head and arm throws that she goes through sometimes because she does get her back taken because of them. Her ground and pound is good just in the sense that she is constantly working. If she is on top, she will constantly punch her opponent. That's her game. Her stand-up's pretty weak. Her clinch entries are terrible. I mean, she is almost just running at her opponent with her arms stretched out, trying to get the clinch. She does have a bad position, a bad thing of losing positions on the ground. Because she doesn't always put herself in good positions. Even if she's on top, she'll be in a position where she's off balance or whatnot. But no one's really been able to take advantage of that. And like I said too, when she goes for a head and arm throw, there has been times where she's gotten her back taken. Even Felice Herrig, I believe, took her back. And then VanZant scrambled out and just beat her up. Alex Chambers, 5-2 record, 2 wins by KO TKO, 2 wins by sub. She also has 2 losses by submission. 36 years old. Her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game is good. She's actually not too bad off her back. Most recently submitted Kylan Curran in her last fight. Her stand-up's not that great though. She just has no power in her strikes. Kylan Curran was lighting her up in the stand-up. I think the problem with Curran is that she's just too green. She got over anxious, over aggressive, went for a takedown she didn't need to go for, and got armbarred because that's the one area where Chambers could win. Here's the thing though. I can see Paige VanZant getting top control. I can see Alex Chambers going for things and getting punched constantly. That's the thing. Stand-up wise, I would probably say they're a bit equal. They're not that great in the stand-up. I see Paige VanZant just playing her game, She'll bully her way into the clinch. She might eat a strike or two in her clinch entry, and doesn't matter. Get her against the cage. Work some dirty boxing. Get the takedown. Maybe she ends up on her back. Scrambles to top position. And just rains down constant ground and pound. Just constantly working. Alex Chambers might try to work a submission. That's her best way of winning this. I can't really see her getting that against VanZant, especially if she's just getting punched in the face all the time. VanZant's one of those types that will wear down on her opponent. She's not like the most heaviest hitting fighter or anything like that. So it really depends if I think like, is she just going to wear down Chambers and get the KO or TKO, or does she wear her down and get a decision? I'll go with the former. I'll go 12 gauge Paige VanZant by TKO, just outworking her, outworking Chambers for the TKO victory. On to the prelims. Paul Felder fights Ross Pearson. Pearson, 17-9 record with 1 no contest, 7 wins by KO TKO, 5 wins by sub. That's has 3 losses by KO TKO and 2 losses by sub. At 30 years old, training out of Alliance. He is trading wins and losses right now, most recently losing to Evan Dunham. He's an Ultimate Fighter winner with good boxing. He uses combinations. And his grappling is improving. You know, he'll go for his own offensive takedowns. Has a good left hook, too, actually. Against Dunham, though, he could not really defend his takedowns and could not really get off from the bottom. Felder, 10-1 record. That one comes from most recently losing to Edson Barboza. 7 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by decision. 30 years old, training out of Hendo Gracie's. Among other camps, too. I know he trains with Cowboy Cerrone. He has some strong Muay Thai. Real heavy-handed guy. He has some good knees, too. He uses spinning strikes a lot. His fight against Barboza was him throwing, and then throwing, like, both of them throwing, like, a bunch of spinning strikes. And he has good takedown defense, and a particularly good chin, too. I'm high on Paul Felder. I said it before. He really opened my eyes in the Danny Castillo fight. I did pick him to win against Barboza, but he ended up losing. But, you know, he's still a really good fighter. Real dynamic stand-up. Good chin, good takedown defense. Ross Pearson, I mean, solid fighter, but, you know, even in stand-up, he can get overwhelmed. It's not out of the ordinary for that to happen to Pearson. And while his grappling's improving, you know, I can't really see him taking down Felder or holding him down. So I'm going to go with Paul Felder. I think he's going to hit Pearson with something kind of hard. Paul Felder, KO or TKO. Next fight after that, John Lineker fights Francisco Cisco Rivera. Lineker, 25-7 record, 12 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. Also has 3 losses by submission, 25 years old, he's 5'2". To me, the much shorter fighter here. He's on a 2-fight win streak, and he's moving up to 135 for this fight. I mean, technically he was always fighting at bantamweight, but, you know, now he can be at the 135, 136 limit. He has some strong boxing, real heavy-handed, really good chin, too, a really good body punch. And that's actually, he uses that body punch to thwart takedowns because his hands are already low. So he can get like an underhook or whatnot when he throws a body punch. And he's super high pressure too. Super aggressive, real high pressure, always pushing forward, and pretty high volume too. He uses combinations and has good takedown defense. Francisco Rivera, 11-4 record with 1 no contest, 8 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by decision. He also has 2 losses by sub, 33 years old. He's going to be a much taller fighter at 5'8". He also has strong boxing, real heavy-handed. Most recently, knocking out Alex Caceres. He's got a good jab, too. You can actually see that in the Faber fight. You know, he's just got a good jab. He's good. He's pretty good at range. He can throw down a brawl, but lately he's been a better technical boxer who's been better at range. And his takedown defense is solid too, and he has a good chin. So it's hard for me to call. This is a really fun fight. I have to say that Rivera is probably the more natural bantamweight. He's going to be 6 inches taller, and Rivera also has a good jab too. So I can see him possibly keeping Lineker at bay. I really can. I think he might brawl with Lineker if need be. I do believe that Lineker's going to keep his power, though, at 135. So this one's really hard for me to call because I can see Lineker getting inside and getting the better of the exchanges from the inside. At range, I got to favor Rivera just on the basis of being the taller fighter. I kind of like Rivera to win this one, to be honest with you. I really think that Rivera can just win this fight at range. Keep his jab in Lineker's face. Lineker's going to keep pushing forward, and I think he's going to touch Rivera. But for the most part, I'm going to Francisco Rivera to win by decision. Just, I think he's going to use his boxing to keep the fight more at range. He's going to be the taller fighter. And I don't think any of these guys really have to worry about getting taken down. So, Francisco Rivera by decision. Next fight after that, Liz Gorilla Carmouche fights Raquel Rocky Pennington. Liz Carmouche. Carmouche, 10-5 record, 6 wins by KO TKO, 2 wins by sub. She also has 2 losses by submission, 31 years old. She's only won 2 of her last 5. I believe she most recently beat Lauren Murphy, though. Her wrestling's good, her ground and pound's good. Her stand-up, though, I've always thought it's below average. Decent at best. Raquel Pennington, 5-5 record, 1 win by TKO, 2 wins by sub, 26 years old. She's trading wins and losses right now. I think she most recently lost to Holly Holm, right? Yeah. Stand-up's actually not too bad. She's not a... her stand-up's not too bad. Her overall grappling game, like takedown defense, solid enough. And, she choked out Ashley Evans-Smith. Her grappling isn't that bad either. The thing with Pennington is she's kind of like average everywhere, but not like great at any one aspect of MMA. And she's tough too. But so is Carmouche. She's really tough. I'm going to go Liz Carmouche by decision. I think that Carmouche is going to go for the takedowns here. If she can get him. She usually tries to pass us to a dominant position and rain down ground and pound. That's really her game. It's takedown, pass to dominant position, ground and pound. And she'll either ground and pound more, or maybe go for like a rear naked choke or something like that. Carmouche actually has a really interesting thing too. She has a lot of wins over like .500 or like worse fighters. And actually, Raquel Pennington, she's 5-5, so she's like... She's got that like .500 thing going on. I think it'll be a pretty good fight. Like I said, I just think that Carmouche will be able to get takedowns. Might even be able to pass the down positions and get her ground and pound going. Pennington's tough, so I can't see her get finished. So, Liz Carmouche by decision. Next fight after that, Clay Collard fights Tiago Trator dos Santos. Collard, 14-6 record with 1 no contest, 8 wins by KO TKO, 2 wins by sub. Also has 2 losses by submission. 22 years old, training out of Pit Elevated. If I were to say his striking style, it would be that he's a brawler. He's got a really good chin, but he's not that great on the ground. I mean, he has like a triangle that he'll throw up and whatnot, but for the most part, he doesn't seem that great on the ground. Tiago Trator dos Santos, 19-5 record with 2 draws and 1 no contest. 7 wins by KO TKO, 9 wins by sub. Also has 3 losses by submission. 28 years old, training out of Team Malegarie. He's got a good clinch. Pretty decent offensive takedowns from the clinch. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's good. Stand-up, I'd say, is average. He most recently got knocked out, though. And Collard lost to an Ultimate Fighter... Was it Benitez? I forgot. It was one of the Ultimate Fighter Latin America guys. Man, this one's tough to say. I was pretty high on Trator, to be honest with you. I didn't think of him as a blue chip prospect, but like I thought he was a solid enough prospect. His game really is like bullying his opponent to the clinch and working from there. I don't know if he can work that against Collard, but Collard's pretty sloppy. Just an overall kind of sloppy fighter. Fun, but kind of sloppy. Got a good chin. I think Trator's going to try, especially if he uses a clinch, he's going to just try and neutralize a lot of Collard's offense. I can really see that happening. Dos Santos' stand-up isn't that bad, too. He did get knocked out in his last fight, but he's got to watch out for his clinch entries and getting hit in those clinch entries. Nonetheless, I'll go with Tiago Trator dos Santos. I'll go by sub. Actually, Collard, like I said, not the greatest on the ground. I'll go Tiago dos Santos by submission. Okay, on to the prelims on Fight Pass. Joe Riggs fights Ron Stallings. Don't know what weight class this is. I know Riggs he fought like Saunders and Cote at welterweight. I don't know if this is at welterweight or middleweight. So I know Stallings fights at middleweight. Riggs 40-16 record with 1 no contest, 20 wins by KO TKO, 16 wins by sub. Has 6 losses by KO TKO and 7 losses by sub. 32 years old on a 2-fight losing streak. Training out of MMA Lab. He is a veteran. He's a good wrestler, good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. Stand-up's average. He's just not in his prime either. Ron Stallings, 13-7 record with 1 no contest. 6 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by KO TKO, 32 years old, training out of Team Low Durban. In his last fight, he actually showed some good stand-up. I believe he has like a karate background or taekwondo, like a traditional martial arts background, if I'm not mistaken. His wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills are actually pretty solid as well. I forgot if Stallings was an out fighter or an in fighter though. I should have watched some footage. I'm gonna go Ron Stallings here, probably by decision. I think he might be able to crack Joe Riggs with something pretty hard. And even on the ground, like both takedown defense and just on the ground, I think he might be able to defend a takedown or two. And even if it hits the ground, I can see him like maybe getting back to his feet and whatnot. So Ron Stallings by decision. And finally, Nazareno Malegarie fights Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva. Silva, 7-0, undefeated record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub. 26 years old, trains out of Elu Kautai with the likes of Francisco Tornado and Godofredo Pepe. He is a finisher. He's never been past the first round. And pro MMA. That's not to speak for his Ultimate Fighter Brazil fights. I did not watch any of those fights, actually. I am of the opinion that Ultimate Fighter fights that you see on the Ultimate Fighter are not a true representation of a fighter's skill set. Different factors that lead me to believe that. 1, they had to weight cut a lot. 2, they're not living in where they normally live, not training with the same guys. They don't have full training camps. Mentally, it's different. And, some fights are 2 rounds instead of 3, so they fight in a different way. What I've seen from Silva, though, his stance is wild. He starts pretty fast. He'll go in and he just throws, like, I saw 2 of his fights. He goes in and he just throws something wild. He does have some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, though. Malegarie, 23-3 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 15 wins by sub, 29 years old, a 6-fight win streak, training out of Team Tavares. It's his first fight in the UFC. He's a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And really, that's the name of Malegarie's game is the ground game, Tries to take his opponent to the mat and use his superior top control and whatnot. And his superior Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to win fights. In the stand-up, he's not that great there. He's not clueless there either, but it's just not his strength. Silva's got some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu himself. He's a little too wild for my taste, which I think will open up a takedown for Malegarie. So I'm going to go Nazareno Malegarie by decision. Okay, to recap, I have Demetrious Johnson beating John Dodson. I think that was by decision. Andrei Arlovski beating Frank Mir by KO or TKO. Anthony Johnson beating Jimi Manuwa by KO or TKO. Jan Blachowicz beating Corey Anderson by decision. And Paige VanZant over Alex Chambers by TKO. On to prelims, I have Paul Felder beating Ross Pearson by KO or TKO. Francisco Rivera over John Lineker by decision. Liz Carmouche over Raquel Pennington by decision. Same thing's funny. Tiago dos Santos beating Clay Collard by submission. And on to UFC Fight Pass prelims, I have Ron Stallings over Joe Riggs by decision. And Nazareno Malegarie beating Joaquim Silva by decision. So that's it for my predictions for UFC 191, Johnson versus Dodson 2. If you have any questions, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA View. Thank you guys very much.